This is the U.S. intelligence agency, mind control.
Oh, yes. Let's go.
Alrighty.
The only way this could get better is if Johnny Jizzo showed up. And cue Johnny Jizzo.
There really is such a diminishing left in Israel. I mean, just look at the genocidal onslaught. Look at the polling. Less than 2%. Less than 2% thought that Israel was using too much firepower in Gaza after they obliterated and decimated the entire Gaza Strip. Less than 2%. You go back to the 2014 onslaught in Gaza where 2,500 Palestinians were killed, 500 children. 95% of Israelis supported that. The open fire policy at this fortified border fence, overwhelming majority, over 90% of Israelis support that. There were some Israeli human rights advocates that tried to take that policy to the Knesset, and it was overwhelmingly, unanimously upheld. That
Let's
no,
get to
we
some
can shoot to
genocide talk.
kill unarmed people
This
who
is
are
the
just
intro.
straight.
This
So
is
I
her.
suppose the first.
This is her. That's their fucking trailer to the fucking podcast.
Yeah, that's
Boy.
the sting. Look how
Jeez.
much everybody skipped it. Everybody.
Well, I mean that's.
thing that
But like, what's the next big part? The most replayed. Let's see this. What's going on
How are
here?
you radicalized? I just want to say this bit. I want to say the intro.
Because
So this is
I'm
how
gonna
you
sit.
radicalized. She is the worst. Ash Sarkar is the worst British person ever. Awful.
I wanted to ask you is that as a Brit, when you're looking
As a
at
Brit.
American culture, particularly when you're young, it just seems so optimistic. It's got this can-do attitude. And that's the impression that we got from watching all of your romantic comedies when, you know, we were like 8 or 9 years old.
There's your problem.
And then something really happened around the War on Terror where that sunny optimism became, to my eyes, quite insular, paranoid, thin-skinned. So,
Gee, I wonder if it
full-time
has
Yank
something to do
from-
with 9/11.
Couldn't imagine. There's a good assessment of what America became, though.
your vantage point,
Poopy.
how did your sense of what it meant to be American change during the War on Terror?
Oh my God.
Yeah, I think my story is pretty commonplace with a lot of young Americans that were radicalized through 9/11 and subsequently the Iraq.
I want your opinion on this. She put Abby as a journalist and activist. How do you feel about that?
Fine.
You don't think that's
I put activist in front of journalist.
you don't think that that's a contradictory thing?
I think it's a hot take to call her either of those things.
No, I know, but I'm saying that putting those together is that.
Are you talking about
a
mommy like
contradictory
that?
statement?
Listen, that's how she talks to me when she texts me. Okay, don't talk about mommy like that.
Abby is the best. Abby is
the best of the worst, you know. No, because like, is she a journalist? Not really. Is she an activist? Not really.
Not really. But that's
You know,
not what
it
I'm
should
talking about.
say-
I'm not.
If we were going to be honest, it would say
Propagandist.
Hamas spokesperson under there.
But I'm talking about those two things specifically, not her.
What
Like
would you put?
independently.
What would
That's
you
not-
put?
that's not what I'm
know,
saying.
They do contradict. Yes, they do
Yes,
contradict.
it's
but
a contradictory.
You could be like a corporate like PR journalist.
And be an activist on the side.
Maybe
'cause you
she's a
hate your
sports
job.
journalist and a political activist on the side. How about that one?
Okay, no, that's less contradictory because sports journalism.
But seriously, what would you put under there for her?
Foreign media.
I mean,
I don't know. Personality.
Former RT journalist, former RT
Yeah,
host.
that could work. Former journalist.
Well, no, I mean she still does the same shit. Abby sounds sus. I think no, don't talk about mommy like that. Don't transvestigate mommy.
her.
War. I was a senior in high school when 9/11 happened. I was just completely
Wow, she
vapid
really is
in my
mommy.
own bubble. I grew up kind of in this staunch
I was
Democratic
8.
Party family, who the new Democrats. So we were like, just followed in line with the Clintonites, not really understanding why we supported the death penalty or we were, harsh on immigration, but that's just what
She
we were
did
told,
9/11.
the Democratic Party stood
She
for at the
did
time.
not.
So,
Okay.
I was living in the suburbs, this kind of white flight, 20 minutes away from the Bay Area in Oakland, California, or in Pleasanton, but 20 minutes away from Oakland.
What did
Oakland, and I was just completely
Oakland.
shrouded.
See, I told you.
From Oakland.
What did I tell you about Oakland? It's where all the psycho Palestinian activists are from and come out of. I told you. That's why they blocked the bridge.
In my own just ignorance, essentially. I mean, I didn't even know really what Palestine was. I mean, it just really goes to show you how much of a failure our education system is. But when 9/11 happened, it just shook all of our worlds. I mean, I went into college and I started just vociferously reading. I remember I read Blowback from Chalmers Johnson, and I was just like taken aback at how insane the presence of our U.S. military was around the world. I remember when the Iraq War.
That's just the soothing Dami Mommy voice, okay?
Happened
she
when
serenades me when
Operation
she talks.
Iraqi Freedom, the bombing of Baghdad. I was sitting in the lunch hall, like at San Diego State, which San Diego has like the largest concentration of military bases in the entire country. So I was just surrounded by like, armored like servicemen, like fucking in uniform, and they were just cheering as if it was a video game. And I mean, something inside me just was, I mean, my stomach was just sick. I remember calling my mom. I was like, did Saddam do something? I was like, what the hell happened?
Did he do something?
From 9/11 to Iraq, and it just made no sense to me. But
did Saddam
even
do
though
something?
I felt like I was really like alone, and it really took me a long time to find my crew and to galvanize anti-war activism in that city.
Yeah,
I felt
sidelines are anti-war activism, you bitch.
Tumultuous uprooting
like,
of that kind of American ignorance.
The insurgency was reaching out, and like leaders of the movement, like Abby, sidelined them.
Of young people at the time that just kind of got shook to their core, that really looking at 9/11, how did something like this happen? What were we doing around the world to cause something like this? And then also, why the hell
it's
did
because
we go off on this murderous
it's
rampage?
because they were the Sunni insurgents, right? Right. So the Sunni insurgency reached out. They like they're making these arguments about how their press is being limited by the Americans and how they should be entitled to a free press, and appeal like these genuine emotional arguments appealing to Americans, right? And like I'm looking at them and I go to leaders of movements like Abby and sidelined, because that wasn't the goals. The goal was to keep it going. They wanted the Civil War. Like, who are you kidding, Abby? You sidelined it.
Oh my god, these are great.
What were the kinds of media sources that you were engaging with, which were able to, kind of feed and nourish?
She's very fish-like, the communist girl.
It's just British things.
She looks like Dory from Finding Nemo. Am I wrong?
Maybe. No. Like very skinny face. Wide head. Skinny. It's like a
at the time I was
like a fush.
It's crazy. There really were not many alternative media sources online at the time. It was like either conspiracy sites or wars that really
there were. It was called the fucking insurgent press.
But I remember awakening to the fact that the media was complicit, and that was like a huge shock to my system too. Like, because at first I just blamed Bush. Bush is evil incarnate. We need to do everything that we can to stop the Republicans. And then it pivoted over to the Democrats when I was like, wait, why is Nancy Pelosi saying impeachment's off the table? Why are the Democrats doing this? This makes no sense. And then I kind of had this realization that, wait, the media is actually serving as, it's serving the ruling class. It's putting out this propaganda to prop up these myths and to push this foreign policy. And it's complicit. And so I just kind of paved my own way to create my own media agency, which was Media Roots, 25 years ago, because I was like, there's no way that I could actually do anti-war activism without having a platform to push these ideas through, because I'm not just going to stand out on the street corner handing out flyers. I need to create something that's counter to this.
She's ignoring that she was a big 9/11 truther at the time and said it was an inside job, and that was mainly what her thing was about.
All snowballed into realizing.
Oh, I saw a bigger possum too, by the way, but I couldn't get a photo of it.
I heard
it was a brush tail. They were big boys.
The entire system props up itself, and everyone is a player in the game. And that's what led my advocacy through citizen journalism and being an advocacy journalist, wearing my bias on my sleeve and pushing for the issues that I care about, which is, you know,
there you go. What about that?
policy. But at the time, there was
Advocacy
really not
journalism?
much out there,
Sure.
Ash. I mean, it was really just books and literature.
It's not journalism.
Yeah, but she framed it as she literally said, that's what made me a propagandist. I make sure everyone knows that I love these things like Hamas and Russia.
That I dove into when I was in college.
I mean, you mentioned that your parents were sort of New Democrats.
Your parents,
you know, the social problems are very bad, but the causes are very good. So when you went on your journey of politicization, did your parents come along with you for any of it, or was there just a divergence at that point?
Amazingly, my mom has been with me every step of the way. She is hardcore radical leftist. She says all the time, she's just like, if you're not right on Palestine, I don't want to hear what you have to say. She's
I said, Abby, do you think you're a leftist?
I think she does.
She's hardcore. She's wearing her keffiyeh every day, free Gaza sweatshirt. I mean, she's balls to the wall now. But yeah, she came on the journey with me, I would say. My brother as well. My brother was a little bit more red-pilled in the conspiracy land, but he's done incredible work. We have a podcast together now. And my dad is more conservative-minded, but he's still like, it's still like very logical. He just kind of sits back and he's like, I still don't understand why we can't talk to other world leaders. Like why he doesn't really understand how absurd, you know, U.S. foreign policy is. So even though he's a little bit more conservative, he still understands just how fundamentally backwards it is that we're the world's empire and we are, you know, the global bully. So he's getting there.
Sure.
I mean, it sounds like your mum should meet my mum because they'd get on like a house on fire. You mentioned the dearth of good media when you were becoming politicized, and you know your brother perhaps got a little bit.
She lives in a Harry Potter room. What the fuck? British moment.
So what's the difference, and how can you tell the difference between high quality information that exposes conspiracies and lower quality information which ends up promoting conspiracies?
I mean, that's a good question, because with the algorithmically driven like 24-hour news cycle, you have so many content creators feeding off of that content and media generation that just, it's so superficialized, and it just actually takes the most low grade conspiracies and they peddle them without any thinking at all, and how it actually is impacting large swaths of people. And I would say that that's a huge problem, because it's just completely entertainment driven.
Okay, let's jump to journalism. Let's jump to this spike.
So egregiously laid out and laid bare over the last 5 months, blanketly painted as the heroic people, and the other side are the villainous terrorists. And so if you look at the way U.S. empire is propped up and how corporate media acts as an arm of our foreign policy, all of our enemies and allies, I mean, it's just so by the playbook. I mean, Palestine is a perfect example of how egregious this narrative plays out, where one side is just blanketly painted as the heroic people, and the other side are the villainous terrorists. And so if you run counter to that, I think it's the most extreme example, because I've talked to many of my colleagues in media and they've said this is just simply a third rail issue. You cannot talk about Palestine, you cannot talk about a free Palestine, and you have to toe the line if you want to keep your job. It's sick and it's
not
disgusting.
here.
And I mean, for me, it's
not at 5th gen. We'll let you say whatever the fuck you want. It's sort of.
Hey, I found a new ISIS guy.
It depends. It depends.
I found a new ISIS guy on Twitter. How many
if you can provide 3 sources for the information,
nobody's following him. Haha. James can't steal this one from me until I repost his shit. Every time I go to like these like people that I've had association with, and I go there, and all these little motherfuckers that are friends with me are suddenly following them.
Who'd you find?
Huh? Oh, just the nicest guy.
It's like I wouldn't be able to do my job if I wasn't able to be honest about what I see. And it's just been so egregiously laid out and laid bare over the last 5 months. I think that people are finally starting to wake up. But I mean, you see people like resigning, you see people protesting from within these news agencies saying the dehumanization of Palestinians is too much for me to handle, even though they are kind of willing agents in these things and they are believers in the system to a certain extent.
Like
it gets to a certain point, Ash, where even those people think it's gone too far. But I would say Palestine is certainly the biggest third rail issue. But a lot of things about U.S. foreign policy are. I mean, if you sympathize with, Cuba or Venezuela, I mean, whatever is at the receiving end of U.S. sanctions, brutality, or warfare, we all see how it plays out. You have to condemn Saddam, right? You have to condemn Gaddafi.
Oh no, not condemning Saddam. How could you do such a thing? What a kind guy he was.
Well, stop for a moment.
Gaddafi. Yeah, Gaddafi. Yeah, his rape haram. Yeah, cool. What a great dude to fucking defend there. Awesome.
Rape
yeah,
haram, you mean?
Great
Haram.
choices.
Haram. He doesn't believe in haram. It was a harem.
بيت dar, zanga, fard. It is a guide.
Oh, a little bit tempted to
Guide, yes.
join up with corporate media and try to change it from within.
No, I didn't. I always knew that I would never be welcomed in corporate media. I mean, that's why I started off as an activist, and that was always in my heart. And I know that that flies in the face of what you're told is this professional journalism outfit that you have to put forward to work at these agencies. I was at Occupy Wall Street. I was kind of the liaison for coverage there, doing videos of the brutality of the Oakland police, and RT, this Russian news agency. Back then, no one knew what the hell it was really, other than the fact that there was a foreign news outlet that was covering the protests seriously. And so we didn't care. We just said, this is great. Like, finally, someone's giving us the coverage that we deserve, and putting our voices out there and covering social movements with a fair lens. So I think that I always knew that, cynically or not, institutions like RT that were exploiting the divisions in American society and the failures of corporate media for not doing the basic job of holding power to account, I knew that was the only avenue to really cover the stories.
What was that about exploiting division?
Real stories are covered. Great investigative reports are done
very open
throughout
about
corporate media, but
yeah,
it's a tough
that's why I love
and
her.
I think that when you look and pivot to something like U.S. foreign policy, it's simply and virtually non-existent. And so my passion always being exposing the U.S. empire and an advocate against, or fighter against, U.S. imperialism, I knew that I would never have a chance in those agencies, and I knew that.
Man, you know how jealous I am.
RT and subsequently Telesur, and now going completely independent for the last 6 years. I knew that was really the only option I had, Ash, especially in this
over now.
So
She was there like
the pig
right after the suicides that happened. So guys who totally weren't dry boarded. And for those who don't know what dry boarding is, it's like waterboarding but dry. So what they do is they shove rags down their throats and then like hold their mouth shut, so they're asphyxiating with their throat completely full of the rag, and then they like pull it out. Well, they didn't pull it out soon enough, and 3 guys died from this torture, and the government covered it up.
Yep.
And she went there and questioned them about it. Like, did she meet DeSantis?
That's funny.
She asks about the hunger strikes. And it's when she like switches the voiceover to be to hide that she's not actually answering those questions, right? Which, you know who else does it, but they do it comedically? Have you seen Penn and Teller bullshit?
Yes.
So they'll do the fake questions to the person, and to make it like more silly.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like that level of like voiceover, right?
Yeah.
Like in the middle of somebody talking, but like they go, so she was there, and the big thing she was questioning him on is that the hunger strikes, the Gitmo guys decided it was better to call them long-term intermittent fasting or something, and they're like, why did you stop calling them hunger strikes? And then she cuts in, really, because it sounds like they're protesting their detainment here or something.
That's a good.
And the guy just keeps saying like the inmates under our care. No, he doesn't even say inmates either, because they're not prisoners.
No.
restriction that we see over
Detainees.
time of media, the consolidation of media, and especially the algorithms that are just driving out and suppressing the left more and more.
So like she was there, like
it's really a dark future.
What
for
better
those of us who
time to
wanna
be
keep
there?
telling these
Right
stories.
after the dry boarding and when they're switching it to fucking being the whole like long-term intermittent fasting bullshit. So jealous.
I want to talk more about RT in a minute, but just to go back to activism for a second. One of the things that activism taught me is that cops lie. And I've taken that into my journalistic practice. They might not lie about everything, but they'll lie about anything.
Yes, they do.
And I've taken that skepticism into the journalistic work that I do. So when the police release a statement about what went on, who did what I've learned is to read it against the grain rather than going with the grain. So what did you learn from activism that you've taken with you into your journalistic practice?
It's a great question. I mean, I think I learned just how suppressed activism is in a fair way.
You know what's funny? I went the opposite way. Learning journalistic standards sent me in the direction of activism and the left wing, because I'm like, okay, well, none of these guys can have corroborating sources to back this up. This is obviously horse shit. So I kept looking. It's funny how I went to the right side of journalism and they went from activism to the shit side of journalism because they just wanted to hype up their own activism. It's a self-serving reason.
Again, she got famous by saying 9/11 was an inside job, so let's not forget that.
It's painted kind of with broad brush. It's generalized a lot. I think, especially my experience in Occupy Wall Street and the way that it was demonized.
Oh my
by
God.
the corporate media and ridiculed. I mean, there's far too many stories to retell about.
Bro,
how
if you're over 30 and you're a
just for these
journalist, you were
protesters.
at Occupy Wall Street and you have the same story as everyone else. Okay, I'm so sick of this. We were all there.
It's just like juvenile and had no goals in mind, and they would just pick sound bites from the most crazy sounding people and generalize the entire movement. And I think that was just so infuriating, because it's like, look, I mean, these people are, we were pushed to the brink where, it was on the heels of the housing collapse and people had no idea what to do. Remember, I mean, this was several years into the Obama administration, and Obama came in after this horrific, tumultuous period during Bush where we were embroiled in all of these wars. And Obama said he was going to change it, right?
And then Obama made it worse.
He was going to end the endless wars. He just didn't do anything that he set his sights to do. And so I think there was this groundswell.
I was like, she recovered it there. She said he didn't do anything that he set in his sights. I was about to say, oh, he did a lot.
People who just didn't know what else to do, especially with this economic collapse that we were facing. And the way that the corporate media painted it was just disgusting. So I think I learned, and I was instructed by the voices that I was surrounded by, that I wanted to uplift those voices that never had a chance.
And then you went to work at RT.
In corporate media. I mean, corporate media is subsidized by the very institutions that we are trying to expose. Banks,
not RT.
So you went to work for corporate media.
Not RT, though.
It's kind of cartoonish.
A Russian state
of course,
media
corporate
outfit.
media is not going to cover social movements fairly and uplift the voices of the people who are trying to expose who subsidizes them. So I think that was my biggest takeaway, is like,
it's so funny that she can't realize that RT is just Fox News for Russia, and that Russia probably sees Fox News as great because it reports pro-Russian, or in a way that Russia would probably favor, as opposed to, let's say, MSNBC, which doesn't like Russia. I bet you that they probably think the same. And that there are Russians who probably want to work for Fox News or Tucker Carlson at this point. So I just think it's kind of funny that she can't see the irony of everything that she's saying and how she is exactly what she's criticizing.
She doesn't care.
No.
I want to be a people's journalist. I want to
Mommy
tell
can do no
these
wrong.
Stories. I want to uplift these narratives that will never be told.
Thinking about the distinction between corporate media and state
Every time it cuts
media,
back to her,
someone might say that, sure, corporate media isn't perfect, but at least you don't have a government dictating what the editorial line should be.
I mean, that's what our government is. Our government is a capitalist entity.
Oh my God. Was she trying to hint at RT
different
being
facets
that?
of industry?
Or was she just trying to lead the question?
Is just defense contractors, people in suits run by defense contractors. And so Corporate media is an extension of what U.S. capitalism and the U.S. government is. So even though it's a little bit more complicated when you look at the structure of how it all works, I would argue, yeah, I mean, of course, state media, it can be cartoonish. I mean, look at how Russia Today has metamorphized after Trump's election. It's essentially become like de facto Trump news network when, you know, at the time when I joined, it was much more fair. I mean, it just let people do really what they wanted as long as they were exposing the divisions and exploiting those divisions. That's what RT hired people like me to do.
Hilarious.
But there was no dictates from above, as amazing as it may sound. I mean, there was an infamous moment where I spoke out against the Crimea incursion on RT.
I credit her. See, she's still proud to stand by this.
Yes.
Because it's good clout that she stood up and said the Crimean invasion was wrong.
Yes.
I don't know where Euromaidan takes, though.
The network itself. And I went to my boss that morning. I wasn't trying to pull, you know, career suicide by doing it on air without anyone knowing. I went to my boss that morning and I said, I'm going to read this statement. And if you don't allow me to read this statement on air, I'm going to walk out and quit. And he was just like, okay. I mean, and I did. And, you know, it caused this huge,
respect.
You know, it caused this huge upset at the network. I think half of the people at the top thought it was good that I showed that I had editorial freedom and subsequently did continue to speak out against Russia. And half of the other people were like, why is she still hired? She didn't toe the line. But I think that was a really important moment to just kind of show other people that just thought of RT as this cartoonish propaganda network that, no, you can.
Okay, there's a few. What is this one called?
The one we're watching?
Yeah. Okay. I was
on Gaza?
Yeah, so I was looking at the thumbnail thinking it was a different title. I'm stupid. Ignore me. Okay, so I have a few different versions. I have two different versions to send you. You can decide which one.
Okay.
Because if it's definitely not going to get claimed if it's coming through these sources here, because they never claim. That's what I have to give these people credit. They've never been shitty and claimed anything. These two sources here. You can choose which one.
Let's go with this one.
I can't wait to see what you picked.
An interesting media story in all this. One anchor on state-sponsored Russian TV appears to be mad as hell, and she's not going to take it anymore. Abby Martin had a Howard Beale moment on her show, Breaking the Set on RT, Russia Today.
It was such a great name for a show, too, Breaking the Set.
Yeah.
In Crimea.
Before we wrap up the show, I wanted to say something from my heart about the ongoing political crisis in Ukraine and Russia's military occupation of Crimea. Just because I work here for RT doesn't mean I don't have editorial independence. And I can't stress enough how strongly I am against any state intervention in a sovereign nation's affairs. What Russia did is wrong. I admittedly don't know as much as I should about Ukraine's history or the cultural dynamics of the region, but what I do know is that military intervention is never the answer. And I will not sit here and apologize or defend military aggression. Furthermore, the coverage I've seen of Ukraine has been truly disappointing from all sides of the media spectrum and rife with disinformation. Above all, my heart goes out to the Ukrainian people who are now wedged as pawns in the middle of a global power chess game. They're the real losers here.
I wonder what she thinks now.
She stands by this.
No, not this.
Oh,
now.
With the Russian invasion? Yeah. I don't think she's a fan of it. But I think she's mainly focused on Hamas and the U.S.
Yeah.
She might spin a weapons are prolonging the war type narrative or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. We can look. We can see what she said about Ukraine.
Yeah.
All we can do now is hope for a peaceful outcome for a terrible situation and prevent another full-blown Cold War between multiple superpowers. Until then, I'll keep telling the truth as I see it.
Anna Koren
as I see it.
Simferopol, the capital of Crimea. Anna, the story's just beginning.
Okay. That was a good one.
That I showed that I had editorial freedom and subsequently did continue to speak out against Russia. And half of the other people at the network were like, why is she still hired? She didn't toe the line.
Here we go. Ukraine and the West. Just what we wanted.
There you go.
I mean, thinking about where the establishment consensus really gets things wrong, it seems abundantly clear to me that now Putin has got the luxury of dragging out the war in Ukraine. So he can wait until maybe Trump becomes president again or Joe Biden exits the White House. And that could mean the end or a significant reduction to the military aid that America sends to Ukraine, which really is the lifeblood of the Ukrainian war effort. do you think that there is a risk that cheerleaders in Washington and in Westminster who are saying, yes, there can be such a thing as total victory for the Ukrainian army, that perhaps they ended up encouraging the war to be dragged out to this point where the only settlement options for Zelensky are going to get worse and worse as time goes on, because Russia's negotiating position is going to end up being stronger?
Of course. I mean, look at what Boris Johnson did. He said, you have to keep this war going. I mean, there's been so many.
What's your denialism? What's your denialism? Oh my God, Abby, what the fuck are you doing?
Poggers!
The lead up to the war, there was a lot of efforts that were stymied that could have prevented this war from happening at all. The US and the UK, partners in crime, they want the bloodshed, Ash. They want Ukrainians to be used as cannon fodder. And it's a disgusting, cynical policy. They don't care about Ukrainian lives. I mean, it's absolutely
we could say that
horrific.
about the US right now. They do not care about Ukrainian lives.
No, they don't. It's obvious that they don't. It's exactly as Zelensky said. It's politicking.
When you see that they've just been used as political wedges, political tools to facilitate U.S. hegemony. And yeah, I mean, it's going to end up where there's going to be a lot of land spared, a lot of lives lost, but also Putin's going to get a lot more of what he wanted after so many needless deaths have happened. And you already see Biden like admitting that, yeah, there's going to be a lot of territory that's ceded to Putin if we want this war to end. So what was the purpose of all of this in the first place? I mean,
you know what the purpose was? I say this every fucking time this comes up. Guess whose decision it is? Not yours. It's that simple. It's literally that simple.
Weapons kept flowing. The lives kept being thrown in the meat grinder.
There you go. You fucking nailed it.
She said meat grinder. She said meat grinder.
For what? I mean, look, I completely disagree with what Putin did. I thought he threw gasoline on a tinderbox, and it was heinous criminal behavior.
He basically has the same take as Hassan, which is, for actual Hamas propagandist, is pretty pro-Ukraine. You know.
Yeah.
Like, she's more pro-Ukraine than Hassan, even though she has the exact position of Hassan, because it's the contrast, you know?
Yes, yeah.
Institution of NATO and what the U.S. did to facilitate and foment this war. It's disgusting. I mean, the U.S. wants nothing
after
but
the Israel one, I think.
War and upset, and they do not care about peace.
Oh, no, I'm good now.
At all. Look at the 2014
we can hear, I mean, like, her on Israel, who cares? We've heard it all before.
Okay, yeah, sure. Okay, well.
You had Victoria Nuland just casually talking about who they're going to put in charge in Ukraine. This is what these people
Hang on, I got a filler for you to bridge the gap.
It's just like a chess game to them, and it's heinous and disgusting.
I want to move on
that
just
on while you find
bit, because I know
another thing to run to. You mean imperialism?
And tell me this, I mean, you, in the clip we played at the start, when you made your dramatic statement, you conceded you weren't an expert in what is going on in Ukraine, or indeed in Ukraine itself. I presume now you've probably come up to speed pretty quickly, given all the attention that you've had. What do you think, with all your experience in broadcasting on RT America, is the correct way for this crisis to be resolved?
I hope it resolves diplomatically, Piers. You know, you can imagine the last couple of days have been pretty hectic. I haven't really been able to keep up with the day-to-day, but I just hope for a peaceful outcome with no more military aggression. I hope the military aggression scaled back, and I hope we can see a peaceful outcome. But I think that the real question that should be asked is, why do I have to work for RT to tell the truth about corporations and the U.S. government? I mean, seriously, you guys are beholden to advertisers that you cannot criticize, and that's why I work for a station that I can criticize.
Well, hang on. I'm free to say what the hell I like. Sure. No one's ever told me I can't criticize advertisers or corporate entities. That conversation has never happened in the 3 years I've been on there at CNN.
Fair enough, Piers, but I think a lot of people deal with self-censorship all across the media spectrum.
She's not wrong. There is a lot of self-censorship in media. A lot of things people won't talk about for whatever reason, and they just don't talk about it.
Yeah, like she doesn't self-censor.
Yeah, exactly. It's just everything is hypocritical.
She really is just like Hassan right here. You know? I'm a propagandist, you're a propagandist. Yeah.
Are you aware of a CIA psychological profile about you, sir? Would you be interested in hearing what the CIA had to say? This secret study portrays as a brilliant but dangerous megalomaniac who is likely to pursue his own aims in disregard of U.S. interests. He's an uncertain ally. Shall I go on, or would you prefer that I stop, sir?